How's it going, everybody? So in this video, I'm going to be responding to a comment on one of my videos I did about 3 months ago, where a new subscriber asked me about Reishi and Ashwagandha and my current opinions on them. So I shall read their comment. I'm new to your channel. I recently got some Reishi along with Ashwagandha based on your recommendation. But from what you say here, it seems like you became disenchanted with it now. Did you do a 180-degree turn on the Reishi? I know that's not the point of the video, and I'm with you on the futility of trying to find the perfect diet and supplements. But I'm still interested to know if there is a sustainable thing that can help with anxiety and sleep. And I thought Reishi can be a contender. Have not tried it yet because it's still on the way. And this was a comment left by Michael H. on the video, Wolfgang has a mental breakdown on camera. Okay. So, here's the thing. So first of all, make no mistake, finding the right or the perfect diet or the perfect supplements for you is not futile, okay? And I do not believe that was the point I was trying to make in that video, but I was just kind of like ranting, so I don't even know what I was saying in that video really. But it's definitely not futile, okay? What I advocate is first of all, not getting tied into a box of dogma and not going on an endless rabbit hole trying to find the nirvana of health syndrome is what I was really trying to get at. Basically, there's like some of these ideas of health, like raw vegan diets and stuff like that, where people, they're never satisfied with the amount of health they get. Or like you look in the biohacking communities, people who spend thousands of dollars a month on their health and trying to optimize, every system in their body imaginable. Meanwhile, they're restricting protein and doing like long-term fasting, protein restriction and stuff like that in order to extend their life, and yet they have to spend all this money trying to feel healthy. And it's like, well, maybe if you ate adequate nutrition and adequate protein, then you wouldn't need all this extra stuff to feel energized. But the point I was trying to make is you need to use trial and error to find a pattern of eating that is also based in like intelligent, rational, nutrition science to a certain degree. And, through trial and error, you kind of like find what works for you. Anyway, that's like a very nuanced topic. So as far as like reishi mushroom and ashwagandha is concerned, so this kind of ties into that. So for me personally, reishi mushroom is really amazing. I did not do a 180-degree turn on reishi. Ashwagandha is kind of like hit or miss for everybody, really. So let me kind of explain. So at a baseline, ashwagandha, there are many different types of ashwagandha. There is the whole herb powder, which I think is probably the best thing to go with. And then that's just powdered root. Then, of course, you have KSM 66, which is a patented extract used in a lot of the scientific studies on testosterone and athletic enhancement and things like that. Then you have the sensorol ashwagandha, which is highly relaxing and contains a much higher percentage of withanolides, which are probably the sedative, relaxing compounds in ashwagandha. And then you have a new one called Shodan by Nootropics Depot, which I've heard is highly sedating as well. And you also have a variety of just like normal standardized extracts floating around. I've seen Now Foods has one. Himalaya, which is one of the first ashwagandha brands I've ever tried, They have just like their own kind of like standardized extract. And that one I've actually found to be one of the best versions and the most consistent across the board. Okay. So that's the first thing, is like there's a lot of different types of ashwagandha. So when we talk about, did ashwagandha work for me or not, we have to kind of think about, well, which ashwagandha are we talking about? Because they all have very different effects. And some people will go freaking crazy taking the KSM 66 version, whereas others might feel like an absolute god taking the whole herb, powder, the powdered herb. So for me, and that's the thing, that's another thing, is my experience is my experience, right? You might differ. So here's the thing, though. With all of these extracts, all of these ashwagandhas, usually the trend was that they'd be amazing at first. They would put me to sleep. They would work really well for kind of relaxing me. But then over time, the effects would change. So either I would be way too lazy to get the motivation or energy or drive to really do anything productive unless I was absolutely forced. Or I'd feel apathetic, and I would just have zero pleasure. It's called anhedonia, anhedonia. It's basically a lack of pleasure, and it's commonly experienced among patients with severe depression. This is actually a very common side effect of ashwagandha that happens no matter what form. And I've seen a lot of reports lately on KSM 66 causing this to a severe degree. And you could find all sorts of people kind of like giving their extreme representation of these negative side effects. There's a guy, his YouTube channel is like Bioenergetic Health or something, and he goes on and on. He was on Mark Bell's Powercast talking about it. The thing you guys have to understand is that, you need to be very careful with the doses of these things and be very careful about the brand and the specific extract. And it's best to experiment, again, through trial and error and try different doses, different times as well. Like for some people, ashwagandha might energize them and it's better to take it in the morning. For other people, they might take it at the nighttime and because it really helps with sleep, and that's what I did for a while. There was a time in my life where I was doing shift work, and what I would do to fall asleep is I'd take a whole teaspoon of the Terrasol ashwagandha root powder and a teaspoon of the Terrasol 4-to-1 Dawnwood Reishi extract. And I'd take those two together to fall asleep, and it was really great, but it also kind of caused me the side effect of depression and lethargy. And kind of apathy and lack of motivation, anhedonia, or andohenia, however you say it. And I've since realized that was probably more so a result of the ashwagandha, but I find reishi seems to maybe do that at too high of doses as well. And so the mechanisms behind that is that ashwagandha seems to upregulate the sensitivity of a particular serotonin receptor that's responsible for feelings of pleasure as well as feelings of nostalgia and sentimental feelings and things like that. So it can kind of cause depression for some people. But the other thing is it pretty much completely, it really suppresses cortisol. And that's a huge issue. When you suppress cortisol too much, cortisol is not a negative hormone, and this is what people don't understand. Cortisol is a hormone that spikes in the morning that triggers your motivation to get up and go. It's a thing that wakes you up in the morning and makes you want to do work. And so, there's people that talk about adrenal fatigue. Well, adrenal fatigue is not the correct word. The correct word is progesterone still. And what happens is when you chronically stimulate adrenaline release by taking stimulants like caffeine, what happens is your body starts to use up progesterone, which is like a precursor to cortisol, but it's also a precursor to testosterone. And over time, you start to feel like, the low energy and stuff like that, the so-called adrenal fatigue, simply because your body has used up all of its progesterone, its hormonal precursors, and can no longer stimulate cortisol, nor can it stimulate testosterone. But generally, it's mostly a cortisol thing. And so they don't feel motivated anymore. And that is not because cortisol is bad. It's because the chronic stimulation using drugs of cortisol suppresses cortisol's creation by using up all of its precursor hormones. And just so everyone knows, cholesterol is actually the very first parent hormone that creates progesterone and all these other things. So one thing that people find is when they eat a high-fat diet, think about like bulletproof coffee, people who put like butter in their coffee, and they talk about how it helps with the caffeine jitters, a lot of people will say. Well, that might be because you offset some of the, the stealing of the precursor hormones. Like you give your body more building blocks to create the energy, the cortisol and the adrenaline and stuff like that through stimulating the production of cholesterol from more saturated fat. Anyway, and just kind of like another thing I just thought of is that ashwagandha was typically consumed brewed with ghee, which is like a form of clarified butter. So anyway, what I'm trying to say here is some of these side effects can be the direct result of suppressing cortisol, okay? And a lot of people take ashwagandha to fix adrenal fatigue, so to speak. And so maybe if you're suppressing cortisol release by taking ashwagandha, you're going to probably feel, the low motivation and apathy. But over time, just by suppressing cortisol release, when you finally get off ashwagandha, maybe you freed up your body's resources enough to where you can start producing adequate cortisol again to where you can actually have that healthy drive in the morning that was originally taken away from stimulants. But anyway, what I'm saying here is like suppressing cortisol literally can cause you to, like, sure, you don't have anxiety. This is the thing. Ashwagandha is a very powerful, like, anti-anxiety type of herb. And it's life-changing for a lot of people, okay? A lot of people have, they live in such high anxiety and stress situations that they would rather feel the numbness of ashwagandha, than feeling the anxiety. And so sure, they can't feel the same level of pleasure and motivation, but at least they don't feel that severe anxiety anymore. And for a lot of people, the crushing anxiety that they experience ruins their motivation as it is. So taking something like ashwagandha, it might numb like the stimulation of motivated feelings, but it removes the anxiety as well. That also tends to ruin people's motivation. So you could say it could be a double-edged sword. But the big thing here that you have to understand is not everybody has terrible results with ashwagandha. For me personally, my kind of verdict as of this moment is every time I take ashwagandha, I have issues eventually. The type of ashwagandha, but the thing is, I haven't really done enough experimentation yet. And the thing is, I've done way more experimentation with ashwagandha than most people, but I'm still thinking that there's a way I could take ashwagandha with only positive effects. I still believe that there is a way, like maybe if I take the whole herb, the whole root powder, but in a tiny microdose, and maybe if I cycle it. I've seen a lot of people say they'll take ashwagandha only when they're feeling really overwhelmed and stressed, kind of like as a remedy rather than a daily tonic. But they won't take it as a normal daily thing throughout the week. And that way you don't develop these like symptoms that can happen, these side effects, when you take ashwagandha over time, like a lack of motivation and whatever. It's really not that big of a deal if you only take it when you're really feeling overwhelmed. Or if you've had insomnia for a couple days and you need something to put you out, I mean, ashwagandha will definitely do that. But some people, it seems to be very stimulating. And, there's people out there that I've seen lots of people claim that they have had actual measurable changes in their blood results of their thyroid hormone when taking ashwagandha. And I personally, I have to admit, so I don't have blood work. It's very important that people understand. But I have definitely noticed symptoms of hyperactive thyroid when I take certain forms of ashwagandha in high enough doses for too long. Okay? The whole root powder even I did after a while. So it's like, man, it can put me to sleep. It has very agonizing effects on GABA receptors. Like it upregulates GABA. And a lot of people will use ashwagandha to help with alcohol withdrawals because it stimulates similar pathways as far as GABA is concerned. But it could be relaxing and stimulating at the same time because of its effects on thyroid. That's a very interesting kind of conundrum there. And you could see why it's important to not just look at reviews on... You can't... If you've never tried something and really messed around with it through trial and error, then you can't just look at someone else's experience and be like, oh, it didn't work for him. Like, this guy says he almost died. Like, especially something that has thousands of years of medical use. And ashwagandha was typically combined with other things as well. It wasn't just taken on its own. So, but my thing right now is that I found other things that give me the feeling state that I want, okay? So I would mess around with ashwagandha again if I needed to, but I don't need to because I found amazing herbs that give me the effects that I want, okay? Things like, and it depends also, like cycling them in and out, like, cordyceps, Polyrachis ant, black ant, what else? Pine pollen, but these are different class of herbs, of course. But for something to give me the similar effects of ashwagandha, I do believe Rhodiola cantulata is a good one that a lot of people aren't aware of. It's not the same thing as Rhodiola rosea, but cannulata. It's a different strain that actually has higher solidosaccharides and no rosavins, and that puts me to sleep for some reason. Rosea tends to be more stimulating. But Reishi is another one that's kind of like it has different forms and different extracts, and it's kind of like there's no clear-cut answer. But let me go into detail because I like Reishi a lot, and I will still use Reishi on myself. As for ashwagandha, like when I'm consulting with clients and trying to help them deal with their problems, if I have them take ashwagandha or if they tell me that they want to try ashwagandha, I will talk to them about the different forms, and it depends on their intention. If they're trying to go to sleep, usually we'll start with just like the whole root, and then I might tell them, hey, try this Himalaya extract or try the Sensorol version. Don't do KSM because that's not really good for sleep, even though I've actually found it seems to regulate sleep for me as well. And side note, I also found I had I had more pains and kind of injuries when I took ashwagandha. I don't know why, but it was pretty consistent across the board. And they were like strange injuries, like that were unique, like weird back pains. And so I don't know how to explain that, even though it's a nightshade and all that other stuff. So anyway, let's get into Reishi. So Reishi mushroom, where I'm at with Reishi right now is I love Reishi. Reishi is a special herb in its own class. Reishi mushroom is not meant to be taken as a remedy for sleep or a remedy for anxiety. However, it is one of the most powerful medicines to solve chronic anxiety disorders, to solve chronic depression, to solve insomnia. The thing you have to understand about Reishi, though, is while it can definitely solve a lot of health problems, okay, like the anxiety, the chronic stress, depression, the insomnia, it is meant to be taken in small doses over time as a like a rebuilder of the spirit, so to speak, okay? And that's why it's known as the herb of spiritual potency. There are scientific studies, and they're only done in the short term. Imagine what they can do in the long term, that have shown great evidence for insomnia, for mood disorders and depression, for anxiety, okay, as well as for certain immune conditions and autoimmune conditions, digestive disorders, and cancer, might I say, right? I've seen a couple of different studies that have actually used reishi mushroom as an adjunct therapy alongside chemotherapy to solve cancer, or to put cancer into remission is a better term. And for me, I wonder, well, shit, if reishi can help alongside chemo, it's probably helping to protect the body from some of the side effects of chemo as well. It could be chemoprotective. I wonder what reishi would do on its own without chemotherapy, right? But that's a whole controversial topic to get into. The point is, it does have documented effects in modern medicine, in the scientific literature, as well as thousands of years of documented evidence as a medicine. But if you're thinking using it as a drug, like a short-term thing, like, oh, to heal my anxiety, to heal, to help me sleep at night, it's like, it will do that. But you have to understand, okay, the most profound effects of reishi happen over time. You will feel a profound effect of relaxation and tranquility, and almost like meditation in a powder or an extract or a tea, however you take it. And it's important that you take the right type, the right extract too. But it over time, it literally works like a guiding, like a guiding aid almost, like a friend, like an ally. They call it an herbal ally that works with your consciousness. And I know that this sounds like woo-woo stuff. I normally am more like, oh, science, but like intangible stuff that we can measure. But this is important because science is pretty limited as far as these types of things. Anyway, it's like a spiritual guide almost. For me, and you'll hear a lot of crazy like stories like this. You'll read about them. For me, what I've noticed when I take reishi is it removes the resistance necessary to take the action that I need to take. When I take reishi, and a good high quality reishi, like the hot water 10-to-1 extract by Hyperion Herbs, I notice like dishes or like, if I, a part of my house that I haven't cleaned in forever, for example, like my closet or something, that I've been like, it's been on my mind for a long time, but I've been putting it off and trying to ignore it. Out of nowhere, I'm just like, well, I have an extra 30 minutes. I think it's time to go clean my closet. And just the resistance goes away. And I'm just able to actually do these things without putting too much effort into it. And so for me, if you've watched my recent video on like how herbs and supplements change your life, this is a primary example. It's like you can use your mind and affirmations or just like behavior changes to get things done and to make necessary changes in your life. But it's a lot easier when you have herbs or supplements or nutritional changes that turn your physiology in your favor to where it doesn't feel like an uphill struggle. But I don't feel like reishi modifies neurotransmitters per se that makes you motivated. It's like it just removes some kind of weird barrier. Like, I'm gonna sound weird. I'm gonna sound kind of like a new age hipster here, but like I literally feel like reishi, a good high quality reishi, removes some kind of non-physical barrier, like a spiritual barrier that I literally feel just like go away. And I'm like, I guess I'll just like clean my dishes now. Like things just become effortless all of a sudden. And I don't feel proud about doing it after I'm done. It's like it ain't no thing anymore. So I think that's fascinating. Okay. So there are profound benefits for people who are on a self-development path taking Reishi. And it goes beyond like the reductionist paradigm of like, working on endocannabinoid receptors, which I think is one thing it does. And I've had people who will take a hefty dose of my elite level Reishi extract, and they tell me it feels like it reminds them of how they feel when they smoke weed, Reishi's not like that. It's just if you take too much of a high enough quality dose, potency extract, it'll make you feel like that. Anyway, it does other things too, though. I mean, it works on the GABA receptors. It helps to kind of like, I believe it helps to resensitize dopamine receptors over time. And it definitely calms cortisol and adrenaline. In traditional Chinese medicine, Reishi was known to calm the heart, so to speak. And you literally feel like a calming of the heart in that heart space. Like, that feeling like, you got to rush, you got to go and do some crazy shit. Like, everything is so dire, right? That's like aggression of the heart, or heart fire, I guess they call it in Chinese medicine. One of my best friends is actually a Chinese medicine doctor, Polo, and he'd always tell me I have excessive heart fire. And Reishi helps to calm the heart. Racing thoughts and stuff like that, Reishi helps bring that shit down. And if you have a lot of head energy, it helps to kind of like drain the head energy downward almost, so to speak. If you want to learn a lot more about Reishi mushroom, definitely look up Brandon Gilbert, Reishi mushroom, search that up on YouTube, and Hyperion herbs, because that's the best Reishi extract you can buy in our modern times, besides like Ron Tea Gardens extracts and stuff. It's very hard to find good shit these days. And if you're going to be cheap about it, you should probably just get like the whole Reishi mushroom and just make a tea, like a concoction boiled forever. Terra Sol has a pretty cheap, decent extract as well. It's a 4-to-1 fruiting body extract. But Hyperion herbs is the best. So here is the problem that I have with Reishi, though. So Reishi is something that I will take during very specific periods of my life, okay? At least right now. When I take Reishi, it regulates my body, it regulates my mind, and regulates my spirit. Reishi mushroom brings my entire, like, everything that I am into balance, okay? I notice my digestion is just pristine. I can digest wider variety of foods with no issue. Sleep goes amazingly on schedule. Literally nothing is a challenge when I'm on Reishi. Everything seems so clear. The problem, though, is if I'm trying to will myself through a hard jiu-jitsu training session, like some real warrior shit, where I have these, strong motherfuckers trying to tear my head off. If I'm on Reishi, literally, it slows down my perception of things. So I'm able to see moves and opportunities in real time, which is great, seeing combat as chess almost. But the problem is it kind of lowers my aggressive energy. That's the issue that I have. I don't feel like tearing people's heads off. I don't have that like, yeah, I'm going to win a gold medal and I'm going to show no mercy. That's kind of the mentality I had when I won my last tournament. If you haven't seen my video from my last tournament, you need to watch it. It's on my channel. It was in January of 2022 of this year. I dominated that fucking tournament, but I had this energy the entire month leading into it where I'm like, I'm going to kill people. Like, not literally, but like with my skill, dominate them with my skill. And it was a different type of aggression. And the thing is, when I'm on and I don't know if it's Reishi at this point. I'm still trying to. I still haven't been able to replicate that same energy, even though I'm mostly on the same herbs, but not quite. But Reishi just like makes me meditative. It makes me more of a monk. It makes me more spiritual. However, I'm starting to wonder if that was actually the Reishi that calmed me down, or if maybe there's something else. I don't know. Other than that, I have noticed if I take too much Reishi for too long, and it might depend on the particular extract, I start to have more kind of sentimental, um, like nostalgia and dwelling on the past, a little bit more tendency towards depression. But the thing is, if I'm taking the right reishi extract and the right doses, I've actually noticed, like a whole month where I just felt like I was on cloud nine, where I felt bulletproof and everything was amazing. And I believe I was taking Hyperion Herbs Reishi along with their cordyceps extract. And then I think that was the only thing I was taking. I might have also been taking rhodiola at the time. I don't remember. And I just felt bulletproof. So I can't really say, oh, Reishi caused me depression, because I don't know if it was that, even though I was, it's kind of like a weird type of thing. So, yeah, so basically, I'm probably going to start taking Reishi again here in a couple of weeks, depending on how my current supplementation experiments go. Like right now, I'm experimenting with Shilajit because lots and lots of my subscribers have told me to do so, and it seems to be kind of like a trending kind of herb and nootropic as of recently. So far, I haven't really felt profound benefits from Shilajit. I'm kind of disappointed. um, yeah. So if I can't kind of like get back to that aggression where I was, I'm just gonna start taking cordyceps and reishi, and I'm just gonna start to go back to my balanced tonic herb type of thing. And I'm just gonna train as hard as I can and not really worry about if my herbs are optimized for performance. I'm just gonna take what herbs make me feel good. So anyway, yeah, Rishi's great. Rishi's awesome. Ashwagandha, I might experiment with again. I'm probably gonna go back to the Himalaya brand, the very original extract I had taken when I had success with it, and just give that an experimented run. But I'll do that in the future. I've done many ashwagandha experiments. I did one like in February, and it just completely threw my whole life off. It just completely threw me off. Had chronic insomnia, very bad anxiety. I got really paranoid. I was overthinking everything because it had this stimulating effect on my brain. And I'm like, man, I do not want to it's just not worth it. So yeah, I'm not going to take ashwagandha for a while, but when I do, it's going to be that one. I also have like a whole 3 kilo bag of fucking ashwagandha root powder from Terrasol. I've been giving my friends some of it, but I might just try it again in the future, just using the root extract, the root powder, and just see how that works in the future. I don't know. So yeah, you'd think I would have learned by now, but yeah, if you really want a definite answer, I will say there's tendencies for depression with both of these herbs, and just if you're gonna try one and you want a definite answer, I'd say reishi is a good one to really try. Ashwagandha, I've just seen a lot of people be like, yeah, ashwagandha was doing good for a while, but then it started fucking up on me. And that seems to be a common thing, but yeah. So, yeah, but again, trial and error. And the main thing is it's not so much using people's negative experiences to tell you whether you should try something or not. You should try ashwagandha, and you should try reishi, preferably separate from each other. And if you get bad negative effects, compare that with other people's negative effects and see how common it is. That way you know whether you're kind of tripping or not. If it's a common negative effect, then it's well, you gave it your try, right? You don't have to be like me and just keep trying over and over again, right? And being skeptical of your results. Yeah. So anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Leave your question, comments down below, and I'll talk to y'all next time.